Janis Joplin, the 27-year-old pop singer of rock, was found dead yesterday in her Hollywood apartment.
Her ex-girlfriend has come out with a disturbing revelation on the true circumstances of Janis Joplin's untimely death, which occurred 53 years ago. This film delves into previously unknown information, shedding light on the real reason for Joplin's tragic death and how this new information challenges our previous understanding. Keep watching as we reveal this touching and enlightening tale that provides fresh insight into the life of a legendary rock singer. Janis Joplin, a legend in rock and roll. The Texas hamlet of Port Arthur was Janis Joplin's childhood home. Janis deviated from the norm in this tranquil setting while everyone else followed suit. The blues was her preferred musical style. Janis, in contrast to the other youngsters, was more concerned in expressing herself. She was lonely at times since she didn't feel like she belonged in Port Arthur, but her love of music never faded. Janis was aware that her needs will outgrow those of her little village as she grew older. Leaving for San Francisco, she gathered all of her belongings. San Francisco's music scene became Janis's playground. Her incredible voice became famous shortly after she began performing with a band. Nothing like her concerts had ever been heard before. They were moving, sincere, and powerful. San Francisco was the birthplace of her fame, thanks to her magnetic personality and striking good looks. There was more to Janis Joplin than music. Her music breathed fresh vitality into the rock and blues genres. Her vibrant, colorful attire complemented her lovely, wild voice. She owned it completely. Whenever she was on stage, she appeared to give her all, delivering passionate statements. She was very remarkable due to her voice. Janis had a remarkable ability to go from singing quietly and with soul 1 minute and loudly and with strength the next. What she was singing struck a chord with listeners, and they were moved. Many artists found joy in her songs because she allowed her emotions shine through, and she served as an inspiration to many more. The music industry was forever altered by Janis Joplin. She popularized the idea that it's okay to be unique, fearless, and expressive via music. Challenges and obstacles in life. Janis has a lot of issues in her personal life despite her accomplishments. On stage, she exuded confidence and strength, but behind the scenes, she battled anxiety and depression. She had a terrible time navigating relationships, and the pressures of fame only made things worse. She had a serious problem in her life when she used drugs and alcohol to cope with these issues. Janis spent the most of her time struggling with substance abuse. Addicts continue to use harmful substances despite knowing the risks. Stopping might be challenging. Janis had to do it daily. Even though she loved them, the people she cared about greatly disappointed or devastated her. Janis maintained singing and expressing herself musically despite the difficulties she was facing. She had no problem being forthright about the difficulties she faced and how her songs benefited from that honesty. Regrettably, she ultimately succumbed to these internal struggles. However, Janis Joplin's legacy serves as a reminder to people worldwide that expressing authenticity, no matter how unconventional it may seem, may have a profound impact. That sad day when Janis died. Behind the scenes, however, Janis Joplin's life was far more challenging. People felt things differently as they listened to her music. During that period, Janis found it more difficult. She continued to write songs and put on emotionally charged performances, despite the fact that her heart was hurting a lot. Janis put a lot of time and effort on her last album, Pearl, in the weeks leading up to her death. Some of her early recordings, such as Me and Bobby McGee, would go on to become iconic hits. Despite her personal struggles with drug usage, Janis gave it her all in the studio. She wanted her song to stand out from the crowd so her followers would like it. Janis was in Los Angeles on her final day, which was October 3, 1970. She spent her time jotting down lyrics and socializing with pals. She retired to her hotel room that evening after a busy day. It was unfortunate that Janis did not awaken the next morning, but her friends assumed she was only sleeping. When her friends went to visit her the next day on October 4th, they discovered something really terrible. There was a lot of sadness when Janis passed away. Janis slept alone in her room at the Landmark Motor Hotel on her last night there. She didn't bother to write a message or say goodbye to anybody. An energetic, creative, and boisterous existence came to a quiet close with this. Nobody knew what had transpired at that moment. Subsequently, Janis's doctors determined that her accidental overdose had caused her death. It was a tragic occurrence that ended her brief but remarkable life, and it was felt by everybody who loved her. Upon its release, the word of Janis's demise spread like wildfire. Her loved ones were taken aback. Janis was so vibrant and full of life that the thought of her being gone, even though they knew she had been in agony, seemed inconceivable. The fact that she had been collaborating with her buddies in the studio as of late made them quite unhappy. They had accompanied her while she composed her last songs, but she had departed. Members of her relatives in Texas were likewise not fond of it. Despite the fact that Janis was a rock star in the perspective of others, she was the same girl they had seen grow up. Whether they knew Janis in person or just via her music, everyone who knew her went through a tough time during this. The moment word got out, it became everyone's talking point. Janis Joplin became one of the most famous singers of her time at the tender age of 27. A lot of people were shocked to hear of her death. Her many devoted followers were visibly distressed by the news of her death. Numerous people sent her letters, visited the sculptures to pay their respects, and listened to her music as a way of saying their last goodbyes. The profound impact that January Jones's voice and words had on so many people is undeniable. The media gave Janis a lot of attention for her struggles with addiction, but they still saw her as a dynamic talent who had changed the music business. Although Janis's life was tragically cut short at a young age, her songs will live on. Even after all this time has passed, many can't stop listening to her music and thinking about how her beautiful voice touched them, determining the root of mortality. Janis Joplin was among the greatest vocalists of all time, yet she was one of many who passed away much too young. Her disappearance was a mystery to everyone after her death. How had her life changed? It took further investigation to get to the bottom of this. To determine Janis's cause of death, medical experts and others probed thoroughly. An accident using heroin was cited as the reason. People who are really down or confused often turn to the dangerous narcotic heroin, despite the fact that it may do a lot of harm to the body. Like Janis, it may cause physical breakdowns in those who consume too much of it. An accidental heroin overdose was the cause of Janis's death, according to the person whose duty it was to determine causes of death. For a long time, heroin was an integral part of Janis's life, particularly while she was coping with her emotions of melancholy and isolation. Being popular isn't always easy, and Janis struggled to handle all the attention and pressure that came her way. Heroin and other drugs may provide a temporary high, but they are harmful and even deadly when used regularly. Some have questioned whether Janis's death was caused by heroin or something else entirely, even though it was the certified cause of death. A lot of speculation and storylines have developed over the years around what may have transpired that night. Some have speculated that Janis was coping with a more serious medical condition, or that her medications were too powerful. Others have pondered if her health has suffered as a result of the stress she feels on a daily basis, due to her late nights, performance anxiety, and relationship problems. A life filled with concerts, parties, and travel was Janis's reality. Living this way may be both fascinating and challenging. There is speculation that the stress of her everyday existence may have been the actual cause of her illness, even in the absence of medication, as her body was clearly under a great deal of stress. The medications undoubtedly contributed significantly to the final outcome. Tragically, many were unaware of the connection between mental illness and substance abuse, which added to the community's grief at Janis's passing. Those in the past lacked the level of comprehension that is present now on these matters. Addicts were not always recognized as human beings in need of assistance. On occasion, they were even looked down upon. Janis and others like her had a more difficult time getting the assistance they needed as a result. While Janis's emotional and substance problems did not define her, they did impact her trajectory in life. She liked singing and had a kind spirit. Her desire was to let everyone in on her secret skill. Like everyone else, she had issues that she wasn't always sure how to deal with. Our goal for today is to have a better understanding of the relationship between substance abuse and mental health, so that we may better assist those in need rather than pass judgment on them. After Janis Joplin passed away, many of her fans and acquaintances started sharing their experiences and recollections of the singer. Only her ex-girlfriend had a true understanding of who she was. She chose to share her perspective after a long period of silence. Few individuals were aware of their romance at that time. Who the girlfriend is and how they got started. At a pivotal point in her life, Janis had experienced intense love for another person. Even though this lady wasn't as famous as Janis, she had been her rock through thick and thin. They were close friends who shared good moments, music, and laughter. Janis was an actual human being with hopes, fears, and emotions, not only a rock celebrity, and she was well aware of this. Even though they had their share of problems, their relationship was still vital to them. Even though Janis had a hard time fitting in, she eventually met someone who loved her and was content in her relationship. During her darkest hours, Janis drew strength from this bond. The public's view of Janis's behind-the-scenes conduct changed when her ex-girlfriend spoke about their relationship years later. She spoke about the things that made Janis happy, like music, and the things that made her unhappy, like feeling misunderstood. Her words give us a glimpse into Janis's character. She's the one behind the music and stage lights. Her partner elaborated to others on why Janis was going through a lot of problems. Although she had little trouble falling in love, she sometimes struggled to find the right words to describe how she felt, and her fame only made matters worse. Janis felt better knowing they were friends, but it also showed how hard it was for her to balance her personal and professional lives. The Unveiling, the real reason behind demise. Janis Joplin's ex-partner revealed a crucial detail about her life to the world after a long period had passed. Her partner just uncovered fresh information that modified the tale a little, but for a long time, many assumed they knew how she died. It altered people's perceptions of Janis and revealed the depth of her inner struggles. When Janis's ex-girlfriend finally spoke to someone after a lengthy silence after her death, she revealed some shocking details. According to her, drug use wasn't the only factor in Janis's demise. The issue is more complex than just the medications, albeit they had proven effective. According to her, Janis had been secretly suffering a great deal. Despite her lovely voice and wild performances, Janis was lonely and depressed. She attempted to numb herself with narcotics, but her many poor choices ultimately led to her demise. The girl who dated Janis said that dealing with her celebrity was difficult for her. Janis felt pressure to maintain an image of strength for the sake of her admirers, even though she was suffering on the inside. Seeing Janis struggle with her emotions made her girlfriend extremely sad. Her main point was that Janis's drug use contributed to her untimely demise. People now know that Janis's death was caused by more than simply a drug mishap, according to these additional information. It occurred because she had been reliving a great deal of her past suffering for quite some time. It was difficult to see Janis's struggle with her inner demons as she recounted these memories, according to her ex-lover. She added that Janis was always seeking acceptance and affection, and that she never felt like she belonged anyplace. Many times Janis felt completely alone, even in the company of her friends and supporters. The only way Janis knew how to feel better was with drugs, according to her partner. Janis wanted to be free from her misery. Having said that, Janis wasn't inherently evil or uninterested in anything other than partying. She was confused and upset and didn't know what to do. According to her spouse, Janis seemed to be a kind and sensitive someone who was overwhelmed by the rapid pace of modern life. It was heartbreaking to hear, but it showed Janis's vulnerable side, the one she battled like everyone else. Her spouse reflected on Janis's resilience and the love she maintained for everyone around her despite her own struggles, and how hard she had worked to remain strong when things were tough. The public's perception of Janis's demise shifted once her ex-lover revealed this fresh detail. Everyone had just assumed that it was a drug-related catastrophe for a long time. Suddenly, it became clear that there was a lot more going on with the tale. The horrific emotional anguish Janis had been experiencing for quite some time was at the heart of the matter, not her poor decision-making. The public felt even worse for her after hearing this new information. And gradually, more and more people saw that Janis was a vulnerable person who needed assistance, not criticism. They discovered that the issue's causes were crucial, if not more so, than the problem itself. Substance abuse was a symptom of a more systemic issue, which also included feelings of despair, isolation, and the pressures of fame. Through this fresh perspective, viewers learned the value of delving deeper into people's experiences and trying to put themselves in their shoes. Janis was a gifted artist who tragically lost her battle with substance misuse. This has been the official version of her story for quite some time. However, the complexity of the facts became apparent after these releases. It wasn't just about the drugs. It centered on the challenging period prior to her discovery of them. People started to realize that Janis experienced highs and lows in her life, and that addiction is a symptom of deeper suffering. Additionally, the conventional wisdom regarding addiction was challenged by these novel concepts. Instead of pointing fingers at Janis, people began to consider how we might assist those struggling with mental illness. That even prominent individuals who seem to have it all, happiness, wealth, can be hiding deep emotional struggles, they came to understand. The need of having compassionate conversations regarding mental health and drug use was highlighted in Janis's narrative, particularly when her lover came clean. People back then often didn't know what to do to aid someone going through anything like this. Janis had not passed away. However, addiction is not only a personality decision, it manifests as a response to emotional distress. Despite the passage of time since her death, Janis Joplin's impact on popular music and popular culture remains strong. Her genuine heart and distinctive voice touched many musicians, particularly female rock and blues performers. Because she represents independence, individuality, and musical innovation, she continues to serve as an inspiration to contemporary musicians. Numerous monuments and memorials have been erected in Janis's honor throughout the years. In recognition of her life and the influence she had on society, many places, films, and events bear her name. Listening to her music brings back memories of her electrifying performances. The life and music of Janis Joplin continue to move and inspire people today. If you found this interesting, please like and subscribe for more fascinating tales about legendary musicians and the secrets they kept.